In the world of martial arts, there are people who, despite not having had a very long career, managed to make an impact that few can match. Today, we're going to talk about one of those people. Someone who left a pretty deep mark on the world, both in martial arts in general and in kickboxing in particular. With his fighting style, as well as his behavior inside and outside the ring, he managed to earn great respect. And he came to be called the Blue-Eyed Samurai. Today, we're going to learn about the rise and tragic end of Andy Hug. Andreas Hug was born on September 7, 1964 in Wohlen, Switzerland. He was the son of Arthur Hug and Madeleine Hug-Baumann, who lived in Switzerland but was German by birth. Andy's father joined the French Foreign Legion before his son was born, and he died in Thailand while on duty. Sadly, he never got to see his son. His mother, on the other hand, had just given birth, and finding herself alone, apparently didn't feel capable of being a mother. Moreover, her financial circumstances were inadequate, stating that she couldn't afford to raise a child. So she gives him up to an orphanage.
Damn it.
At age 3, his grandparents take him and his siblings, Fabienne and Charlie, out of the orphanage to care for them.
Because that's what a
Grandpa
does.
Andy's grandparents were poor by Swiss standards, but he didn't care. But his poverty and family situation, being abandoned in an orphanage with his father dead, seemed to matter to others. It was his schoolmates. They constantly bullied him.
Sons of bitch!
And I'm not even going to mention the insane number of wrestlers from the channel who suffered bullying as kids. Well, I just did it anyway. What I will tell you is that for the channel's longtime followers, you already know what this means.
The war is here!
A soccer player in his early youth, he leaves this hobby to practice Kyokushin karate. And at the age of 10, a school friend takes him to the local karate dojo, where he would write the first chapters of his legend. Damn it! I wasn't recording the audio with the window in front of me. I didn't have it open. Damn it! From a very young age, Andy shows enormous resilience to withstand the extremely tough Kyokushinkai training. Needless to say, it's one of the toughest karate styles out there, if not the toughest when it comes to training. His great willpower leads him to constantly improve his technique, and his character and spirit of self-improvement quickly lead him into the world of competition. And thanks to his excellent qualities, he is called up by the Swiss national team at just 15 years old.
Well done.
This karate dojo was unlike the McDojos commonly found on every corner nowadays. It was a legitimate school teaching Kyokushin karate, one of the most aggressive styles. For 3 years, Andy dedicated himself to training and participating in local and national novice competitions, where he stands out in an incredible way. Andy admitted in interviews that the training seemed tough to him and that he even thought about quitting. But one day, he watched a classic action movie that motivated him to keep training. This classic was none other than Rocky. He had the talent but wasn't training properly. Something that apparently Andy experienced in his early years in karate. But when Rocky did things the right way, he was able to go toe-to-toe with the world champion. This sparked Andy's curiosity and he wondered, how far can I go? The initial goal was just to avoid bullying. He had already achieved that, but this question fueled a new motivation. Andy, after years of training and competition, already knew how to defend himself, but what he didn't know was how far he could go. So he dedicated himself fully and passionately to karate. As I mentioned, at the age of 15, he competed in the Oyama Cup, a significant Kyokushin karate tournament, where the average age was 21, and due to this, he needed written permission from his grandparents to participate. Gifted with extraordinary combat abilities, he continues to achieve victories. And at 18 years old, he participates in his first European Kyokushinkai Championship, where he takes first place. Since Andy took part in so many fights, cups, tournaments, championships, and other crazy events, this video would be longer than Avatar. So I'm going to skip a lot of things and give you a super summary.
Why?
Because I can. After becoming the European Karate Champion in 1983 at just 19 years old, he became part of the Kyokushin Karate World Championship. Roughly 80 fighters began the no weight limit competition. He had tremendous development in which you could notice that he showed mastery of a very unique karate style, managing to make it among the 16 finalists. After this, he made the transition to heavyweight in 1984. That same year, he competed in the Kyokushin World Open, one of the most prestigious competitions. He reached the 4th round where he was eliminated by Shokei Matsui, and upon returning to Europe, he won another important title at the 1985 European Championship. In 1987, he reached the semifinals of the World Championship where he defeats Akira Masuda, and by doing this for the first time, a non-Japanese advanced to the final of a World Karate Championship of this style. But he lost some points to Akiyoshi Matsue in a controversial decision by points. In 1988, he had already become the coach of the Swiss national team. In this way, he was sharing his knowledge and experience with other competitors. In September that year, Andy defeated his rivals and reached the final of a major international tournament in Switzerland, against none other than the great Kenji Midori. Who is Kenji Midori, you fool? I didn't know either. Alright, well, Kenji Midori was the last disciple of the great Masoyama. Who is Masoyama? Well, Master Yama was the founder of the Kyokushinkai karate style. I actually knew this. Alright, so Midori in 1991 became the lightest world champion in history, winning the tournament with just 64 kilos. Alright, so going back to the story. In a grueling final match that went into double overtime, Andy Hug defeats Midori, once again proving that he was among the best in the world in the discipline. That same year, in another world championship, this time at the Budokan in Japan, he faced the Brazilian Francisco Filo. Just before the final bell, he kicks Andy in the head.
Pow!
He swung it like a baseball bat, knocking him to the ground. Good old Andy was expecting his opponent to be disqualified, but Master Yama, who was there, tells him no, that it was legal since he started the move before the bell rang. And well, you have to respect the master, especially when he's the creator of the style you practice. And besides, when he's able to break a bull's horns with his bare hands. Frustrated for not becoming the world karate champion as he had hoped, and motivated by what seemed to be a good way to make money in the future, he switched to the Saidokaikan style, a style founded by the visionary karateka Kazuyoshi Ishii. Who is Kazuyoshi Ishii? Minyoka. Well, to sum it up, he was the creator of K1. His first Saido Kaikan karate match was on July 30, 1992, and the last one was on October 3, 1993. During that time, Andy had 11 matches in this discipline, with his 2 fights against Minoru Fujita standing out, and the match he had against Changpue Kichongrit, an expert in Muay Thai. If the name Kia Chongrit sounds familiar, it's because he's known as Timon in the IQverse. And here we have one of those early matches that took place between disciplines featuring karate versus Muay Thai, although in this tournament they shared mixed rules. Bare hands, you couldn't hit the head and blah blah blah. During this time, Andy began winning the affection of the Japanese people, who saw in him an example of what a true martial artist was. They started calling him the blue-eyed samurai even though his eyes were actually brown. I would call him the samurai with the tremendous mustache in Japan. By that time, Andy decides to bet everything on his talent. He abruptly quits his job. Before this, he had to balance his time between karate and work. And that's when he starts writing another chapter in the story of his career and martial arts with a promotion called Kei-Uno. His first fight is against an old acquaintance in the world of karate, Nobuaki Kakuda, whom he defeats in the second round with a knockout. After his opponent couldn't keep fighting, following a couple of brutal knee strikes. Yes, back then they still fought without gloves and still no punches to the face, in the Kyokushin style. After this event, there was one called Kei-Uno Andy's Gloves or Kei-Uno Andy's Gloves, I don't know. Spoiler alert, this is where Andy, for the first time, fights without his traditional gi and instead with gloves and a prominent mustache. In this event, he faces Ryuji Murakami, whom he defeats with a brutal kick in the first round. He closes out 1993 with another victory against Eric Albert at the Keidos Grand Prix. After sending him to the canvas several times with powerful kicks, Andy finishes him off with a barrage of punches.
Bam, 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 pow, 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 God, deliver us from evil.
He returns in March of 94 to face Branko Cikatic, who had just become the first K1 champion, and who had already sent another great like Ernesto Hust to sleep. But it turned out that Andy was a tough nut to crack, and after 5 rounds, he took a unanimous decision. Although the joy of defeating the champion didn't last long, because from the United States they brought Patrick Smith to face him, a fighter who came from Ultimate Fighting Championship and who was a very decent kickboxer. Let's remember that the first Ultimate Fighting Championship was in 1993. And if you want the full story of that event, you have to tell me aggressively in the comments. If not, I'm not going to pay any damn attention. But the man who always defeated everyone with his axe kick, barely after the fight started, is hit with a tremendous axe kick and then knocked down with a punch that leaves him visibly shaken. When the fight resumes, Smith charges in with force and knocks Hugh down with an uppercut. The referee steps in, but Hugh gets up instantly, only to be knocked down by a right hand. This fight was questioned because the punch was considered dirty. But that's how our protagonist today receives his first defeat in K1. 5 months later, with the audience eager for Andy to have his rematch, by this point Andy was not just another fighter, but admired by millions of Japanese people. Keiuno had no choice but to give him a second fight against Patrick Smith, which they called Keiuno
Revenge.
Smith came in super confident for this fight. He talked trash non-stop, but Andy was focused and didn't pay attention. This fight was short but intense. As soon as it started, Hugh knocked Smith down with a kick that years later would be called the Andy Whirlwind. After some good exchanges, Andy lands a knee to Smith's head, sending him to the canvas. And since he couldn't get back up, Andy was declared the winner by knockout, thus earning, quite fittingly, the name of the event, his
Vendetta.
Just a month later, he faces Duke Rufus, the brother of Rick Rufus. The fight was intense, with both sides having good moments, but Andy emerged victorious in the end, after crushing Rufus's ribs with a kick on the second jump. And if you don't know who Duke Rufus is, or the previously mentioned Thai man, I strongly recommend you watch the video from the channel called The Fight That Changed the World of Martial Arts, which I'll leave for you here. And by the way, make sure to subscribe, leave a like or a comment, or face the consequences. So, demasiadas conways and leto na.
Silver or lead?
In December of '94, he faces Rob van Esdonk, a tough Dutch fighter. In this match, a title from the Ulster Karate-Do Federation was at stake. Because yes, the K-Uno events served as a platform to compete for other titles. What amazing events! This one was named K-Uno Legends, once again with a prophetic title because that night Andy became a legend. And with a packed stadium, shouting his name and with a tough opponent in front of him, Andy fought for 4 rounds against him. Until with a superb left hand,
Boom!
he separates the soul from Esdonk's body, sending him to sleep and adding another title to his collection. He returns in 1995, in the opening round of that year's Grand Prix, to face Mike Bernardo, a South African kickboxer with adamantium hands who only knew how to deliver punches and chaos everywhere. He was so good and bald that his story is worth telling. But anyway, in this fight, Andy tasted defeat again because after 3 rounds where Bernardo was ahead, he sends Hug to the canvas with a powerful left and then turns Andy into his punching bag.
That's enough, Freezer!
Until the referee stops the fight. After this defeat, Andy gets 2 wins, one against Peter Kramer, which he wins by knockout with an exquisite punch, and the second against Dennis Lane, a fight that Andy wins after his opponent's corner throws in the towel. He obtained the title from the Ulster Karate-Do Federation. After this, he faces one of our favorite bald Dutchmen, Ernesto Hoost, where Andy loses by decision. But if you think it all ends here,
No!
well, he has the chance to face Mike Bernardo again, seeking his revenge, although this bold South African wasn't willing to allow it. And after 2 rounds and after throwing a kick to Bernardo's head, he lands a right punch that leaves Andy so stunned that he's declared knocked out. He spends 3 months out of the fight and comes back eager for victory. And as he used to say, you can lose a fight, but you have to keep trying because that's the spirit of karate. After spending 3 months training and clearing his mind, he comes back to achieve glory. Well, he has 4 matches against some real tough opponents. The first one against the legendary Jerome Lebanner, winning by decision. In his second match, he defeats channel regular Bart Vale by technical knockout. The third one against Dwayne van der Merwe, whom he sends to the canvas with a punch full of violence. Then he has another match against Mr. Perfect Ernesto Hoost. This fight was a tough battle, but in the end, Andy takes the decision and is well deserved,
Revenge.
thus reaching the final of the 1996 Grand Prix where he faces Mike Bernardo again. This time, the South African's aggressiveness and punching power were not enough to defeat Andy, who had reached his best form.
Now I have the most perfect body.
The Swiss fighter wore down his opponent, focusing attacks on the bald man's legs, eventually bringing him down. Although he gets back up, and after some new exchanges, Andy lands a spinning low kick that hits his injured leg, sending him to the ground and giving Andy the victory and the title. That kick was reported in all the Japanese sports press, earning him the nickname Hurricane Hugh, now with the Keiuno title. Star status in 2 countries, admired by millions, respected by friends and rivals. Anyone would think that this warrior would take a break, but Andy knew the great truth. The ultimate truth that you're not a champion until you defend the title. And even though the Grand Prix title wasn't on the line, he could maintain his champion reputation and continue competing for and winning other titles. The mustached man does exactly this after a routine match against Sadao Kyatsongrit. He faces Stan Longinidis, who at that time was the Muay Thai world champion, and put his title on the line against Andy. But he soon realizes that this was a mistake. Because in the second round, after taking quite a beating from the Swiss fighter, his opponent falls from a strong hit, securing his victory and a new Muay Thai title.
Yep, ha ha ha.
After this, he gets 2 more wins by decision, one against Masaki Satake and the other against Musashi. Following these wins, he suffers a technical knockout loss to Peter Aerts, a draw against Sam Greco, and another win over Mike Bernardo, this time by decision. He then fights Francisco Filo again, who had previously defeated him in karate. But here, Andy's demon showed up and he was defeated in the first round by his opponent's fists. And you remember that sometimes there's no better motivator than defeat, because after this loss he racks up 3 victories. The first one against the Canadian fighter Pierre Wenete.
Oh la la, with him he shows me the real kick.
He defeats him in the opening round of the 1997 Kuno Grand Prix with a nice right hook. He faces Masaki Sakate, whom he decides to adjust his neck with a high kick to the head. He wins a decision against Peter Aerts, but is defeated once again by Ernesto Hoost in the Grand Prix final. In a fight that, as we mentioned in Ernesto's video, was a war. And if one defeat can motivate 2 defeats, they can get on your nerves so much that you decide to look up at the sky on a gloomy sunset, put on an intense face and say, "That's enough."
That's enough.
So the year 1998 arrives and our Swiss protagonist starts it off strong, racking up 7 straight victories. The first 2 by decision against Curtis Schuster and Peter Aerts. And in the latter, he wins the World Kickboxing Association's Muay Thai Heavyweight Championship title. Another one against Mike Labrie, whose left leg Andy crushes, causing a knockout. He takes out Mark Russell by knockout, Miyamoto Masashi by knockout, the great Ray Sifo by technical knockout, in Sam Greco by decision.
Shoo, boy.
And then he runs into defeat again. This time against Peter Aerts, who knocks Hugh out with a strong kick and where Aerts takes the Grand Prix champion belt that year. And honestly, it doesn't hurt me, because Peter Aerts was also a great fighter. He started the year 1999 with a victory over Tsuyoshi Nakasako, to whom Hugh decides to fix his hairstyle with a spinning kick to the head, knocking him out.
He crushed him!
And after this, he racks up 4 wins, defeating Ray Sefo by technical knockout once again. He continues with wins over Stefan Leko and Maurice Smith by decision and Hiromi Amada by technical knockout after 3 knockdowns. He faces Ernesto Hoost once again. I think you're starting to realize that in this K1 era, the vast majority were mega fighters, and most of them faced each other several times. Well, in this new fight against Ernesto Hoost, in the final of the 1999 Grand Prix, he is defeated by decision. It seems that Ernesto was the kryptonite for the mustached samurai, the blue-eyed samurai.
Yes.
At the time, Andy Hug was the fighter who filled the stands, the one who guaranteed ticket sales. The young small-built boy, raised by his grandparents, was already a superstar. He had become the highest-paid martial artist in history up to that point, but he was generating much more. His hard work and humility, not showmanship, drew thousands of fans to K1. In the year 2000, Andy appeared at K1 Burning, defeating the famous Musashi by points. On April 23rd, he defeated the Brazilian Glaube Fitosa by points at K1 Millennium. On June 3rd at K1 Fight Night, he defeated the great Croatian athlete Mirko Krokop Filipovic. His last fight was on July 7th, defeating the Japanese Nobu Hayashi by knockout in the first round at K1 Spirits. Nobu Hayashi will always have the honor of having been the last victim of the Noble and DQ. Unfortunately, a few weeks after this fight, Andy started having health problems, and during a checkup he was diagnosed with acute leukemia. A dreadful illness suddenly struck the warrior. He faced his diagnosis with the strength and stoicism that everyone had come to expect from him. "I will fight this disease with the same strength with which I have fought every one of my battles. I hope to get better, and I know that with your good wishes, I will soon be with you again." Unfortunately, there are some rivals we can't defeat, and Andy couldn't beat leukemia. He didn't have time to recover. He was diagnosed on August 17, 2000 and fell into a coma on August 23rd of the same month. His coach said that the last words Andy said while conscious were, "I love you all." On August 24th, 2000, due to a respiratory complication caused by multiple organ failure, Andy left this world at just 35 years old. After the news broke, the martial arts community in Japan and much of the world was in shock. Peter Aerts, a rival in the ring but a friend in life. He was in the same hospital as Andy, receiving treatment for a back injury, and when he heard about the passing, they say he fainted several times and spent hours crying over the loss of his friend. Ernesto Hust, for his part, mourned Andy's loss and said that few people were as dedicated as he was. By fate, perhaps, Andy never experienced the defeat in sports. His impact on Japanese culture is undeniable. He even participated in movies and worked as a scene coordinator for the animation of Street Fighters 2. There, they tried to create scenes using realistic techniques. His image was portrayed in the Baki manga, where there is a character who bears his name. In 2006, he was considered the 76th most important person in Japanese culture. That's incredible, especially considering his foreign origin. His ashes are resting in Japan at the cemetery of Hoshunin Temple in Kyoto, according to his own wishes and as a sign of the love he felt for this land, and where his master Kazuyoshi Ishii goes every year. With a record of 37 wins and 9 losses, Andy Hugh holds the dates in this video and this place in pure kickboxing victories. His tremendous mustache, which would make Don Fright proud, also earns him the number 4 spot on the list of fantastic mustaches. Andy was an excellent fighter, a great athlete, and from what I've learned about him while making this story, a man with values. He was never involved in any scandals and always showed a will of steel. I know that many of you watching this video are thinking that life is very unfair for taking Andy away so unexpectedly. And it is, and you're right, life is often very unfair. But, as Achilles would say, one is not truly dead as long as their name is remembered. The life and career of Andy will remain for posterity, and he will be remembered by many, myself included, as one of the best. Thank you for being there, everyone.
See you later.